Hi, here we are again. Thanks for taking some time to join us. I poured a nice glass of bourbon and I'm going to be sipping away. If you were here, I'd love it if you were sitting right there and I'd pour you a glass of bourbon too. If you don't like bourbon, well, I don't know, I'd pour you a Dr. Pepper, something like that. So, leadership is hard, but sometimes we make it harder than it needs to be. Let's talk again about some small changes you and I can make that bring about a big difference right away. If this is your first time here, I'm D. Hicks, and this is part of the HILT Academy, High Impact Leadership Training. We put together all sorts of fascinating things we've learned over the years, boil them down into small changes that make a big difference over a long period of time, and then they make that difference right away and then last for a long time. So the HILT Academy's got a bunch of courses in it, but this is our YouTube side. This is where we get to share some of the ideas with you that we've learned over the years from 2,000 or more highly effective leaders like yourself. In fact, we might even be talking about you a little bit. So thanks for taking a little bit of time, and let's have some fun. Have you ever had someone come to you, if you're a leader or a supervisor or a manager or an influencer of people in some way, and folks follow you and follow your guidance and your direction with a problem? And the problem that they're bringing to you is not really the problem that ought to be solved, but you might not have discovered that till later. Have you also found that sometimes people bring a lot of their problems to you? The moment they feel uncomfortable, the moment they're out of resources, the moment they have to pick between this good thing and that good thing and they can't have both, the moment they're frustrated with another person, they just come to you and they kind of delegate their problems to you. What do you do about that? It's likely that you are a helpful person. And as a result of being a helpful person, you just help. But over a little bit of time, you discover that you're kind of like Google. You're the one that everyone expects to have all of the answers. And then you find that the roles start to shift, and all their problems, all their challenges, they come to you like a vending machine, or like I said, like Google. What do we do about that? Because if that goes on for very long, then folks are not going to actually learn how to solve problems on their own. In fact, it's highly likely they won't even solve the right problems. So let's talk a little bit about this simple idea that I like to call the WWW approach to solving problems. The first W is when someone comes to you with any sort of problem, the first W is to ask the question, what problem are we trying to solve? Now, it is rare that the presented problem is the actual problem to solve. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. Usually, though, not. There's something behind it or under it that's the problem to solve. You'll notice that this is true when the same kinds of problems are brought to you a lot. They're similar on the surface. Then there's probably something behind it that has spawned all of those presented problems. So what problem are we trying to solve? It takes a little bit of patience here, because it's likely that when the person brings you the problem, you weren't planning for it. You're busy, you're off wanting to do something else, your mind is on something else, and their frustration has mounted because they didn't bring it to you instantly. So now you have you distracted and them frustrated, and then the problem is presented. So you just want a quick answer to it. Well, you're a leader, and you know that quick answers are really not usually the correct answer, or they're not the most helpful answer. So what problem are we actually trying to solve? That's the first W, the first question you ask. And in fact, ask it out loud. Ask the person, all right, pause a second here. What problem are we actually trying to solve? So remember this story, Donnie? You and I were traveling and it was a late night flight. Where were we going to fly to?
I think we were flying to D.C.
Washington, D.C. And it was a red-eye flight, right? And I won't mention the airlines. Yes, I will. It was U.S. Air. They're actually out of business now for several reasons. They were merged. They were bought by another airline. It probably bought all their problems as well. So this is a late night flight. I don't know, maybe 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. We are getting ready to depart from the SeaTac Concourse A, I think it was. And as we're boarding, everyone's tired and groggy. And it might have even been a Sunday night flight, so we could take a red eye and try to get to some meetings in Washington, D.C. that were morning meetings. We're going to need to be pretty caffeinated for that as it was, But as we're walking down the jetway together, we're 10 or 12 people back, getting ready to board the airplane, and then everyone stops on the jetway, which happens a lot. There's always somebody up front who's slowing down. Not a big deal. We're all kind of groggy. And after standing there for about 15 or 20 seconds, the tall, white-haired, lanky captain of the airplane came running out of the cabin and running up the jetway, screaming, get out, waving his hands, get out, and ran past us. Well, at that point, we didn't know it was a captain. It's not like we knew he was a flight deck officer, but we didn't know it was a captain. And of course, all of us did what everyone would do in that situation, just what you would do in that situation. We just stared at him as he ran by us like this, and then turned and looked at each other and didn't move. Like, is this a prank? Is this a joke? Is this, what is this? And we were tired. A few seconds go by, and then the head steward, the head flight attendant actually, she came out at the bottom of the jetway and said, "May I have your attention, please? The captain was serious. Please turn around immediately and exit the jetway as quickly and safely as you can. There's a fire." Okay, those two approaches were pretty different. So we turned heel and moved out of that jetway pretty quickly, and everyone congregated, and there's a bunch of people stacked up behind us, so she had to say it a couple of times so everyone would move. We all moved out and got back into the concourse and stood around waiting. Okay, so now we wonder what's actually going on. So everyone sits down, everyone's talking, we're all awake now because there was a fire on our airplane. All right, I'm thinking about a half an hour to 45 minutes later. It might have been roughly about that amount of time. Wouldn't you say? About 45 minutes later? Gate attendant comes on and says, all right, now it's time we fixed the problem. It's time to reboard the airplane. So we get up and we think, good, well, it's good. We're going to be able to make it. We'll be a little bit late, but not a big deal. So Donnie and I were talking about, I hope they fixed the airplane, because if the captain ran off screaming, fire, 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 get off, get out. And then the main flight attendant did the same thing, except more calmly. But let's hope that they actually fixed it. Did they get us a new plane? No, it was the same plane. All right, we all got on the plane. Everyone's kind of humorous, kind of joking about the problem. Sit down, and Donnie and I sat down. I sat on the window. He sat there on the aisle. We're all starting to settle in, and everyone's gone through the whole process, and now we start to back away from the gate, and the airplane 10 yards back stops and moves forward back up to the gate and stops again, and the engine's powered down, and we're looking around thinking, what's the deal? Captain comes out again and says, folks, we need you to exit the airplane as quickly as possible. We're not going to deploy the emergency exits, but please exit the front of the airplane as quickly as possible, because it appears that we didn't solve the problem. There appears to still be danger that there's a fire. Now, he's more calm, and I think that maybe the main flight attendant tased him in the neck or something to calm him down. So we're now a little frustrated. Of course, we all get our bags and everyone exits. It's amazing how quickly people can exit and how orderly they can exit. We all got off the airplane, waited for another hour, and found out that the problem was not that there was a fire and not that there was something that could have turned into a fire. If I recall correctly, it was the smell of cigarette smoke that made him think that there was a fire in the cabin. That smell somehow curled up under the airplane and was pulled up into the airplane, and he thought that there was a fire, combined with the fact that there was an alarm that he didn't reset correctly when that smoke curled up into the cabin. He didn't reset it correctly. There was no danger of a fire at all. He didn't reset an alarm correctly. But the biggest problem in that situation was neither of those two redundant systems. The biggest problem was him. What problem was he trying to solve? I don't know. He was in complete panic, ran out like that. Now, you probably won't have experiences like that. And we tell that story often because that's one of the only of those bizarre experiences we've had while flying. We've had other entertaining experiences, but not like that. So we have a situation where a problem was presented, but it wasn't the actual problem. You will find that too. Well, people will run past you screaming, hopefully metaphorically, and they'll say fire, 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 or something like that. And it's not the actual problem that needs to be solved. So the first W in the WWW approach to solving problems is get to the actual root of the problem. Slow down, take a breath, When someone comes to you with their hair metaphorically on fire, something has to be fixed. Take a deep breath. Is this problem connected to other presented problems? What's under it? Get as close as you can to the root of the problem. That's the actual problem. These things are just the fruit of the problem, not the root of the problem. Go there first. And it's best to do that with the person who brought you the problem. Well, so what problem are we trying to solve? Now, this works really well for complex problems as well as for really simple problems. Someone comes running up, we're out of photocopy paper, and they present that problem to you. Well, you could run out and find more photocopy paper, or you could ask, what problem are we trying to solve here? Is it that we are actually out of photocopy paper, if anyone uses that anymore, right? Or is it that you didn't look in the right place for photocopy paper? Or is it something simple, like it's on the upper shelf and you're 5'4", and you didn't want to go to the effort of stepping up a stepladder and looking? Maybe it's that. Maybe we truly are out of photocopy paper, and maybe we've been out a lot. So what's the problem? The problem is not that we're out of photocopy paper. The problem is that someone doesn't have the ownership of the responsibility of replenishing photocopy paper. I know, two different spectrums. An airplane's about ready to burst into flames, metaphorically, or literally even, or somebody's out of photocopy paper. Principle's exactly the same. What problem are we trying to solve? Apply that everywhere. It's really powerful. The second W, quite a bit faster, quite a bit straightforward. Now that we know what problem we're trying to solve, I will ask the person, what have you done already to try to solve that problem? What have you tried? If not you, what has someone else tried to solve that problem? This helps us determine two simple things. It helps us find out, is the person committed to solving the problem, or are they literally just bringing you a wheelbarrow full of frustrations? Here, it's yours, right? Is it a problem they're committed to trying to solve? A second thing it helps us understand is what not to do again. If someone tried these three things and these three things don't work, well, let's not do those that way. Let's do something else. So what have you tried already? Or what has someone else tried already? If the answer is nothing, here, I just want you to fix it. Not a good answer. If you jump in right there and fix it and that person doesn't have any ownership in the problem, then they're just going to keep bringing you those same kind of problems. They need to have some ownership of it. What have you tried already? Or what has someone else tried already? The third W is really powerful. If you're wanting to build a team, this third W matters a lot. Ask the question, what would you do if it were totally up to you? Now that we know what problem to solve, now we know what's been tried or not tried, and what worked and what didn't work. What would you do if it was completely up to you? It's highly likely that that person who's brought you the problem to solve doesn't understand the complex situation in which that problem lives. They might not understand that we're trading this value for that value. We're moving this priority higher and that priority lower. They might not understand that that person over there who's part of this problem and contributing to it, we need that person to stay engaged and work really, really hard. And so we're not going to slap them in the face by taking the problem away from them. They might not understand the context in which that problem lives. In fact, there's an old Chinese general. I always forget his name. It's not General Tsao. I know it's not that because that's some just really good American Chinese food. But I can't remember his name. Maybe it'll show up in the link below, and maybe it won't if we can find out what it was. This old Chinese general, great guy, he said, we can never understand a problem unless we can understand the age in which that problem lives. So that's really what we're trying to do at the very end of this with this third question. If you're totally up to you, what would you do? And I'm going to ask that question of my team member when they bring it to me because I want to find out if they've thought about the complexity of that problem. Do they get the sea in which that problem swims? If they don't, I'll help them understand it. And then say, now that you know this, and now that you know that, now that you know that, now what would you do if it were totally up to you? Because really what leaders do, you know this, right? I mean, let's talk. Leaders don't create followers. Leaders create other leaders. And this is how you do it. Slow your pace down a little bit. Connect what problem are we actually trying to solve. What have you done already? What's worked, what hasn't? And what would you do if it was totally up to you? And here's the context in which that lives. So, fun times. We actually did finally make it to DC. They found another plane. They pulled that one out. Took about 2 or 3 hours, if I recall, for them to find another plane and drag it over and get it all set up. And by that time that we got ready to leave SeaTac to fly to DC, it was, I don't know, 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that. We had fallen asleep on the concrete floor, and then we had moved to some of those horrible benches designed by some intern in engineering school or something like that. There was a guy polishing the floor. Remember that, Donnie? Polishing the floor. He was driving his little automatic powered floor polisher around us while we were sleeping on the floor, literally right beside us. Ooh, I got homicidal. I contained myself. And then finally we were able to board the plane, and it was a different airline. That's right. They got us on a different airline.
No, I got us on.
They, as in Donnie, got us on a different airline. That's what happened. Now I remember. And this was the beginning of a long love affair with Alaska Airlines, because they have been our favorite ever since. Go Alaska. So we made it to DC, slept the whole way. I remember the meeting we had in the morning, but I don't remember anything about it. Just remember that it actually happened. So what problem are you trying to solve? What have you tried already? What's been tried already? What worked, what didn't? And what would you do if it was up to you to solve the problem? Do you get the context in which that problem lives? Fun stuff. I hope this was helpful. Slow down, apply this tool whenever you can. Remember, if you like this, if this is helpful, hit that like button. If you didn't like it, don't hit the don't like button. What good is that? Just don't do anything if you didn't like it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you want to get some more of this, and the notification bell, because that'll let you know when the next one of these comes out. Hey, I appreciate your time. Keep up the good work. Here's to you.
Sun Tzu?
Sun Tzu. It was Sun Tzu. Why can I never remember that guy's name?
Huh?
Nice video.